Welcome to the Happiness Happens podcast. I'm Simona Nicole, host of the show, mindset coach, and motivational speaker. I've made it my mission to help you get unstuck, shift your mindset, and understand your worth to help you live your most purposeful life. Each week, I will bring you an idea, guest, or a positive thought that will leave you inspired and empowered to win your life. We decide the stories we tell ourselves and where we invest our energy. I'm so grateful you popped in. Now let's dive in. Hello, everyone. Welcome to this week's episode on the Happiness Happens podcast. As always, I always say this every single week, but I'm so excited that you're here because I'm so excited for you to meet this week's guest. She is just absolutely lovely, so kind-natured and very bubbly feeling, and I'm just very excited to dive into this conversation. Her name is Victoria Anderson, and she's an executive life coach, teacher, and spiritual guide. She's a natural teacher who believes that when people integrate their heart, mind, body, and soul, they achieve their dreams. She's passionate about using the Handel Method and integrates her signature strength of being intimate, compassionate, and direct into her coaching. She works with individuals to transform their lives, families, and vocations. This results in clients creating more joy, more happiness, and fulfillment in their lives. Victoria is committed to guiding clients to expand their capacity and align their spiritual path. And she joined the Handel Group in 2014 and trained in the Handel Method, coaching students attending the Leading Your Life class at Stanford Graduate School of Business. Her first experience with coaching was in 2012 when she was coached by Lauren Zander, who is the co-founder of Handel Group. And after 6 months of coaching, she experienced a remarkable difference in her health after years of living with Crohn's disease. The method was so compelling that Victoria committed to training with the company. And by working with Lauren, she also created a more connected marriage and a better relationship between herself and her family. Prior to being with the Handel Group, Victoria lived in London for 12 years, where she thrived in an entrepreneurial environment, working in a really fast-growing company, supporting the leadership team in the company's London IPO. She's a lifelong learner and broadened her interest in studying journalism and building a property portfolio spanning New Zealand, California, and the UK. She is a Southern California native and has her undergraduate degree in English from Chapman University, and also earned a secondary teaching credential from California State University, Long Beach, and taught high school English in Orange County. She's now living in Silicon Valley with her husband and her 2 children. She hikes, she goes to the beach, she likes to walk, she likes to travel, cook, and attend Pilates classes and yoga classes. And I think that this is really cool because I've done this before, but Kundalini yoga is her favorite. She's a meditator, journal keeper, and writer. So Victoria, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Oh, thank you for having me on, Simona.
Absolutely.
This is great. I'm excited too.
I know, I'm very excited. And as I, was going through your bio, I kept thinking to myself, there are so many similarities, between the two of us, even in terms of meditator, journal keeper, writer, communicator. But I really get this sense from you of this beautiful teaching sort of vibe, which I feel plays so nicely into your coaching, which is so key. So I guess to start us off, I would just love if you could tell us a little bit about the journey that's brought you to where you are today.
Yeah. So what I'd like to do is take you right back.
Perfect.
To how this all started. And I want to take you to an office on Harley Street in London, and I'm sitting next to my husband. My doctor is sitting across from me, at a desk, and he looks very serious. He's very concerned, and he looks at me and he says, and he looks down at his notes. He looks at me again and he says, "Victoria, you have a very serious decision to make. I can either cut out your colon and 3 feet of intestine, or you could go on, try a medication and see how that goes," which may down the track cause other problems. So I'm sitting there thinking there has to be another way. This is not where I want to be. So that's really where my journey started, of trying to find that other way.
Wow.
And I ended up finding many different ways. So I tried acupuncture, herbal medicine, different diets, and all of those worked. But I really wanted to get to the root of what this disease was teaching me, and why I was experiencing this. So, and that's really where that started. So then fast forward 6 years later, when I met Lauren, and then I started working with her. My husband introduced me to her, actually, and he met her up at Stanford while she was teaching here at Stanford. And so I thought, well, I've tried all these other things. I might as well try coaching. Why not? So I went along and I hired her after our first session together. And then just a few sessions in, she had me do a thought log, and that's when I realized that she's holding my homework, and she says, "Do you realize what you're doing?" And I said, "No, maybe am I not eating the right thing, or I don't know." And she said, "Do you realize how often you lie, how often you don't tell the truth?" And that's when it hit me, like, wow, right. All these little white lies or little things, you think, it's fine. But I was doing it a lot. So that started my process of telling the truth, being honest with my husband, being honest with my children, being honest with my family. And I remember distinctly having a conversation with my husband where we were in the kitchen and I was confessing something I'd been holding in. And I literally felt something shift in my abdomen, and then it felt like it dropped away. And then shortly after, so I kept imagining myself. The other thing Lauren had me do was imagine myself going into my now doctor's office here in California, and my doctor saying, like, "Where's it all gone? What's going on here?"
Yeah.
So within, I would say, a couple of months, that actually happened twice in 1 week, where my doctors were going, "Wow, you had ulcers 3 millimeters deep and they're gone." So it was pretty phenomenal, radical change for me. And having been a teacher in the past, it made sense when Lauren said to me, "Hey, have you thought about being a coach?" I thought, well, because I'd been toying around with going back to teaching English again. But then I realized, wow, I could actually teach people how to design their life and be happier. How cool is that?
It's so cool. Yeah. And I think that there's so many bits in this story that I kind of want to dive into in their own way. And my first is, do you think that so it's Crohn's disease, right? So do you think that the stress that you carried and all of the emotions that you carried contributed to your disease and, the pain that you experienced from that? Yeah.
Yes, I do. Because I was not only, it wasn't just that I was not telling the truth. I was being fake. I was not who the world saw me as. I was not presenting to the world as me as I am. So if you were to see me from the outside back then, you would think, oh, nice car, beautiful home, 2 beautiful kids, private school, blah, blah. But inside there were ulcers. It was not, my marriage wasn't connected. I wasn't being who I wanted to be in the world. I wasn't being the wife I wanted to be. I wasn't being the mother I wanted to be. And I wasn't doing my work here on the planet that I was put here to do. So there were so many areas where I wasn't fulfilled, but I was presenting as if it was all perfect.
I feel like that's a really common theme too. I feel like a lot of people do that. You know what I mean? You present this life to everyone who's around you and make it look so perfect and so put together and so great. But then you have all this like pain and struggle and sadness on the inside that people don't necessarily see. But I feel like when you, like you did, unlock that part of yourself, you allow everybody else to experience their most fullest life because you are doing that. So it's like you're that catalyst in terms of shifting people's lives.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. But when you raise, because you're basically raising your vibration, you're being, I don't need to show up differently with my, friends at yoga than I need to show up with my friends at the, school that my kids go to, or at work or anything. I can just be me. And it's you have so much more energy when you do that.
I love
Not everything has to look like an Instagram post.
Exactly. And I think that that's such a key thing too, because depending on which social group you're in also, you'll always feel, I think more, not you specifically, but like in general, like we'll always feel more comfortable, I think, in the settings where you feel like you can be your truest self. So like you hear all the time, like parents, when they go and they like drop off their kids and it's like, oh, but like you can start comparing yourself to the other mom and how the other mom does this. And like, you don't want to be that one, person being so different, but at the same time, you want to be able to show who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And that happens. I mean, it happens a lot in many different groups, but I feel like parenting is definitely one area where you don't want to get it wrong. And we can be very judgmental against each other. And so when I started to speak my truth about that and be okay with, I kind of messed that up and my kid doesn't want to play soccer like everyone else. It was just, or whatever the thing is, So, I mean, I have a son now in college and he didn't want to take the traditional route. He wanted to do a gap year. So, and people were kind of like, oh, what? What's he going to do?
God. What is he going to do with his life?
Yeah, exactly. What's he going to do? I'm like, travel? Go to India?
Enjoy?
But he did, right? So,
oh my God. And I bet you he figured out what he wanted to do. Do you know what I mean? Like along the way?
He did.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that. I'm so glad to hear that. I love that. When you think about like your coaching practice, your coaching business, and specifically using the Handel Method to do your coaching, what do you think were some of the biggest parts about it that shifted your life? It's a big question.
Yeah. I think let me think. Okay. So there was the part about telling the truth and being authentic and not being fake. So that was huge.
That's huge.
And part of that is also telling the truth about what you truly want in your life. When it comes to your career, your money, relationships, where you want to live, all of those things. So really getting honest with yourself about that. So that's really important. And knowing that I'm the author here. This is my life and I can design it how I want it. Whether it's living half my life in New Zealand and half my life here, I can design that. And so that there's that. And then the other thing that's really big is I just lost it now. But anyway, there's so many parts of it that
it's so true. And I also think like relationships is just such a big part as well. Like relationships, I just feel like our relationship with yourself, relationship with other people. And, if you think about relationships in specific, how can someone start to develop or redevelop their relationship with themselves?
Right. So, I mean, that was the thing that I forgot to say is that,
oh, really?
What I realized is that in amongst relationships, like, if you had asked me before I ever met Lauren, what's the most important relationship of your life, I would have said, oh, my kids. Right. But it's actually not true. It's actually with yourself. And so if you think about yourself, you are with you from your first breath until your last, every moment. And you are constantly talking to yourself. 24/7 pretty much. I mean, I think you get a break when you sleep, but you pretty much, yeah, maybe not. And it's 60,000 thoughts a day. And at best it's 80%, negative or 80% negative. So if you think about, that's that's where you need to do the work. So even people who I work with who are looking for the one, they're looking for love. It's like, can you be that person for yourself who you're looking for in someone else? Can you be that person for yourself first? The one who holds you, tells the truth, is caring, and has positive thoughts going through your head. So we have a lot of negative inner dialogue about ourselves, but what I realize is that that's not even me. That voice isn't even the true me, the big self with a big S. It's all of our past experiences of, things people told us, and theories that we've collected, maybe some family baggage. It all just kind of plays in the background as your subconscious telling you all these things that aren't actually true.
I love that. That resonates a lot for me as well. Because I think that's I agree with this wholeheartedly, because I feel like that's just the biggest block that people have, with developing that relationship to themselves, and, all of that external noise, and not taking that moment to turn inward and to really connect with themselves on like a deeper level. What would you say to someone who's stuck in that narrative of their life that other people have created for them? Like, how can they start to redefine what their own story is? Do you have any tips?
I think, the biggest aha for me around that is knowing that, wait, I'm the author here. This is my life. This is my narrative. And so I learned how to flip that narrative. So I used to do this dumb thing where I would be in Pilates class or in yoga, and I'd be looking at, my hips are too big. My hips are too big. I used to say this to myself almost every class. And so first I started to notice, okay, how often I do that. Is it true? No, it's not true. And, is it, and does it matter? And so I started so I had to keep track of this. It was an assignment I had to do with this and learn how to flip those thoughts. And now I don't even, it might start to pop to mind, but before it starts to take me down a spiral, I catch it and no.
That's amazing. I honestly, I have that narrative with myself all the time. Like, I'll be like working out and I'm like, oh my God. You know what I mean? And I'm like, wait, what am I doing? I'm literally sabotaging everything that I'm doing right now. And so I read this thing that, if you set the intention behind the food you eat or, the workout you do, like one of the like mantras, if you will, that I that I have on my vision board that I look at all the time is, oh my God, how does it go? It says, the more I work out, the stronger I feel, which I think is such a nice way of shifting it, because it's not always about, losing weight or whatever. Like, sometimes it's just wanting to feel at home back in your body again. Do you know what I mean? Especially if you don't necessarily anymore.
Yeah. And I think that what's important about that too is you're tying it back to the why and why it matters. I want to feel at home and lovely in my body. I want to feel, and I want to be able to do my work in the world.
That's so true.
Yeah.
It's so true. Especially because when you're like clouding yourself with all these judgments of your own self, you can't, like you're saying, like you can't go out and do the work that you're supposed to do in the world because you're too bogged down with all of the negativity, all of the beliefs that aren't, like you were saying before, are not yours. And it's true, they're really not yours.
Yeah.
And it's hard to start to shed that. So, in terms of like that in specific, the way to start to shift that, would you say is, catching yourself in that lie and like trying to reframe it in the moment?
So I think the first step in that is to actually start to notice and notice how often that comes up. So it might be, when you're trying on a pair of clothes, a pair of jeans at the store, or you go to eat something and you hear a voice in your head going, I don't know.
Is that bad?
That's a good idea.
But my heart wants it. No, I'm just kidding.
And so start to really notice it, and
Mm-hmm.
then you can start to really work with it and go, okay, this is happening this many times a day, and I'm okay. Like having that view of how often it bubbles up
Yeah.
is a really good first step. And then and then you write what would you say back to that. So if you think about you're your best friend, and let's say your best friend comes to you and goes, oh my gosh, I really hate my thighs. What would you say? You wouldn't go, yeah.
Could you imagine? I agree. No,
yeah.
they'd be like, what?
No, you would say, oh, come on, you're beautiful. It doesn't, there's so much more to you. There, we would say all these things. And so
Exactly.
learning to be that for you. So, which goes back to your relationship with yourself. You're really, you're really nurturing that.
I love that. That's really, really important. And I'm curious, in terms of, so when you make this connection to yourself, when you're able to shift the relationship that you have with yourself, I feel like you're able to find, more joy, more fulfillment, more passion, more purpose. And I feel like a lot of people have different definitions for this word, or these words rather. And I'm curious, like, how do you define happiness? How do you define joy and fulfillment and passion? And I know they're all separate. So, I mean, pick whichever one you feel resonates the most.
So I'm going to pick fulfillment. Fulfillment, I mean, I could choose all of them. I love joy too, but fulfillment for me is being able to do this work.
Mm-hmm.
So to share what I learned with other people and to guide them on their journey toward being more happy, fulfilled, and getting their dreams, really.
Love that.
Being able to design their life rather than feeling like it's just happening to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're not in control.
Mm-hmm. I think the biggest thing with, the word like designing your life, I feel like it's such a beautifully put together word and it encompasses so much, but I feel like it can almost be, overwhelming for people to be like, how do I just, what is it that I want? Like, what is that I even want in my life? And, especially if you're in a job that you don't like, or you're stuck in a relationship, or you're feeling stuck in your life in general. Do you think that sometimes it's hard for people to access that dream to begin with, or that life that they want to design for themselves?
So when I'm working with people,
Mm-hmm.
we look at 12 areas. So, and I like to think of it as sort of an inventory where you kind of imagine yourself in a helicopter looking at your whole life. When you look at career, money, your body, your relationship to self, your relationship with others, and you're looking at all these different areas, and where, there'll be areas where you're like, yeah, this body thing, I've got that. And then there's other areas where you're like, money, oh, maybe not so much. so you can, and what's kind of nice about that is that you can see where, well, if I managed to handle it over here, I can apply that to over here. It's just learning how to do that. But you never want to be working on all those areas at one time. So I ask clients to choose 2, maybe 3 areas at the most, and we'll just dive deeper into those. And then what ends up happening is, so let's say you choose to work on your body, and like I did, I want to be healthy. Mm-hmm. That was my dream. I just want to be healthy and be able to do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So that one area, shifting that one area, designing that one area, it changed so many other aspects of my life. It's changed my money. It changed my career, because I ended up becoming a coach. I didn't know what was coming next after my kids got older. It changed my marriage. I mean, it saved my marriage. So it can have because you're basically embodying a different state. And you show up differently when you're proud and happy and you feel fulfilled in a big area like money or career or body or any of those. You're going to show up differently in other areas.
That's so true.
And in relationships. So
I love that. That's actually such a good point. So it's like, while you're not necessarily working on all 12 different areas at the same time, those areas are always filtering out into every other area, because it's true, especially if you think of like, belief in yourself or confidence in yourself directly translates to money, I think, because when you can build up the confidence in yourself to know that you're worthy and deserving of what you have, you're easier to, like, it does take work and it's still a little bit of a different sort of area, but you're able to understand that you deserve the money that you want. You know what I mean? And you can start to acknowledge that you need to shift something, that you can have the money for the vacation and do something else at the same time, that you can have all of these different things.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. I like to think of when I think of money too, I like to think of abundance, because abundance is more than just cash. It's opportunities,
yes.
It's relationships, and so when you have a good relationship with yourself, like you said, like you're just saying, you're able to bring in abundance of love, compassion, money, all these things.
I love that. And I love that you just made that sort of distinction that, abundance is so much more than just money, because I think that's so important for people to remember that, like, okay, so I'll tell you a story. So for a while, I wanted to make a specific amount per month. Okay. So between my business and my job, I wanted to have, in my business, I wanted to make a specific amount. And so I would just continuously ask the universe, like, please send me X amount, like, or whatever it was that I was doing or visualizing or meditating on. And for probably like half a year, I never considered my job income as part of the income that, of like the overall income, if you will. So I would get my paycheck and be like, oh, like I'm so annoyed at that money because it's not money in my business. But I think what happens when you do that is like, you're telling the universe, like, I don't want any more. Like, I don't want any more of that. You know what I mean? And so you're actually blocking the abundance from coming into your life. And so as soon as I shifted that thinking and started being more appreciative and more grateful, it was like from all the areas, you know what I mean? I was like, okay, this is a big deal. That abundance is not just, one specific thing in one specific way. If you ask for something, I feel like it comes in different areas.
Yeah. And then having the gratitude for that just keeps it
going. It totally does. What kind of spiritual work do you do?
So I meditate, I journal, I study. So I've recently started working with a group. We're studying the Bhagavad Gita. So it's something that I always wanted to do, and I just haven't had a chance. And now that we're kind of, I don't know, we're not on lockdown completely, but we've been in.
Different.
There's so many courses now online. So I've been doing that with my son, actually.
That's awesome.
Who was doing a course in India, with doing some of that work. So we're doing.
What is it exactly?
The Bhagavad Gita is a 5,000-year-old spiritual text, and basically it's basically coaching. So you have Krishna, who's a representation of God, and you have Arjuna, he's on this battlefield, and the battlefield represents the mind.
Okay.
So I could spend all day.
I'm here for this conversation. We can just dive on and off we go.
I'm not an expert. I'm learning this, but I've been reading out of that, and because I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, this is a coaching book. It's a 5,000-year-old coaching book, because Arjuna is being coached by Krishna, who's this manifestation of God. Wow. So it's pretty cool. So
that's crazy. That's crazy. So how do you apply the principles of that into your life? Like, is it just like studying like sort of like ways of living, like similar to, not all like in the same sense, but like how you would sort of study to become a monk? Do you know what I mean? Like, would you involve integrate the principles into your life, or?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that, but what it has me realizing more and more is how much of the work that I do with clients is I'm just the instrument, and the divine is working through me to help whoever's in front of me. And so I'll even, if I have time, I mean, I usually have some time in between my clients, but I'll take a few minutes and just like, so if I'm going to be coaching Simona, I go, okay, I just need to get into Simona's space and just use me as an instrument to guide her wherever she needs to go. And so, and then I kind of let go of the outcome of whatever that is. So whether it's, so whether you come back and go, yeah, I did, I got the thing, I got the job, I got the money. It's like, oh, great. So it's you, it's the divine. It's not because of me necessarily. So there's that. And then also there's a lot of talk about the mind and what the mind is. And so I have a sort of deeper spiritual understanding of what I was saying earlier about what goes through our minds and how it's just not true. It's just our mind is a tool. Our bodies and our minds are tools to get us through this life and to get us to do the work that we're here to do. And so when our mind is very loud and it says,
oh yes,
there's a lot of things that are true, right? And so you kind of have, and that.
I want to quickly pause this interview and tell you about the Handel Group coaches that I've had the honor and privilege of bringing onto the Happiness Happens podcast. With every conversation and interview, I've learned something so impactful and so life-changing. Inner You Life is the online coaching course from Handel Group that gives you the tools to get yourself unstuck, wildly happy, and thriving where it matters most to you. Your relationship to yourself, career, love, body, money, time, and more. From wherever, whenever. Recommended by Hugh Jackman, Dr. Mark Hyman, Forrest Whitaker, Elena Brower, and hundreds more. Taught in MIT, Stanford School of Business, and 50 plus institutes of learning across the world. Visit inneryou.coach and use the code HappinessHappens at checkout for $75 off. Now, back to the episode.
To me, having that context made me realize, so if I start to go into this death spiral, it's like, it's just my mind. Like, I don't have to listen to it. I can tune it off. I can just turn off the volume.
I love that. I love that you said that because it's so true. And the noise level that the mind provides sometimes is so overbearing. And like you were saying, being able to center yourself. And I feel like that kind of, I mean, if this type of practice, for everyone who's listening, like if this type of practice works for you, but like allowing yourself to center yourself like that and getting in tune with like the vibration of what is going to come or like what's in front of you or what you're about to like tap into, what you're about to do, like that is such an incredible thing that you do, Victoria. I love that. Like, I think that's awesome because it's true. Like you really are channeling like the message and like guiding people to access those parts of them. I love that.
That's right.
I love that.
Yeah.
What are some tips to, if someone was struggling in life, really struggling with something that they're, facing right now, what would be a tip or two that you have in terms of developing a different perspective around that struggle that they're facing?
Yeah, let me think. I think for me, so if I'm stuck in something and I start to get into my head about something, gratitude is always my kind of go-to. Because if I start to feel sorry for myself, so I started feeling sorry for myself because we're in COVID, and then on top of that, now we have fires around us, and so the air quality was so bad that we couldn't even go out and walk. So before, it was like, we can go for walks, and then now I'm going, we can't go for walks. So I started feeling sorry for myself, and then I shifted my perspective and got into gratitude about, I live in a nice home, I live in a nice area. It's a couple of days inside isn't gonna, I'm lucky I can do it where I'm doing it.
It's so true.
Yeah.
I love that. That small perspective shift is that's so, so, so important. But, I think at the same time too, like, I just think that it's, it's really amazing that you're able to do that because so many people aren't able to do that and then just like roll down like the negativity train forever. You know what I mean? And then they wake up and they're so unhappy. and they're like miserable. And they're like, why am I so unhappy? Well, it's like, well, did you think about what you have to be grateful for today? You know, I've met people who complain through the gratitude, and I'm like, they're like, I'm grateful for this, but I'm like, no, just end it there. Like end at the exactly. It's crazy, but I completely agree. I really think that gratitude piece is so important. And I love that you said that, because I feel like I've had a lot of conversations recently and no one has talked about that in so long. And so you sparked something in my mind that I love that you did that. Thank you.
I think to add to that too is sometimes thinking about, so like in this situation, it's like, okay, so what can I do? How can I serve? How can I, because I've been hearing, just in my reading, hearing about people who, like Mother Teresa, she wasn't well. She had all kinds of health problems, but she just kept doing the work because she was so connected and so devoted to her service. And so when I start to feel down, I start to think, okay, so how can I make things better, even if it's just a little thing?
Mm-hmm.
Like giving, we had a plethora of plums from our plum tree. I just stood up. My son and I were standing outside just passing them to people as they were going by. And it's just a nice,
I love that.
Any little thing. It doesn't have to be, feed the world. It could just be one little, feed a few people.
Exactly. But I think that that's just like such an incredible, reminder that like humanity still exists, and like there's still people out there who, really want to help and be of service and, have so much to share and to give. And I think that that's an important reminder, especially in, the way that our world is right now. I just think that it's so important to remember that there's still people out there that care about you. You know what I mean? Like there's still people out there that want to make sure that you're okay. And I think that that's really important, especially like you were saying, the fires around you, like people are stuck at home, and it's like, that could be really triggering for someone to have to stay back home again after they just had to do all that staying home for however many months,
Yeah, it is.
It's crazy. It's really
tough.
crazy. Yeah, it can.
Isolated.
Yeah. And then if you think about, so when I was introducing you earlier on the show, we were talking about like the heart, mind, body, and soul connection to, really achieving your dreams. How do each of those pieces play a role in accessing like your full potential, full growth to access those bigger dreams?
So for me, as I was mentioning a minute ago about the mind and body. So as I saw this is an instrument, and then really connecting with my heart and my soul, and really listening, and I think this happens when you meditate, when you spend quiet time with yourself, is to listen to what is the big self with the big S need, want, what is that saying, rather than listening to what Instagram says, or my mother says, or what my kids say, or what my husband says. So it's really getting quiet and listening to myself, and that's how I coach. So what does this person need? Not just from here. I have to have a connection here, but it starts here.
I love that so much. That's really, really beautiful. And I completely agree. It resonates a lot with me, because I feel like, what you do in your life is so rooted in who you are as a person, how aware you are, how connected you are, how in tune you are with yourself. All of those different areas play so deeply into each other. And I just feel like that's just such an incredible reminder of how to use mind, body, soul, and heart all together. I love that. Okay. I think we kind of went over this a little bit before. And I know that I feel like I know what you're going to say, but I'm still going to ask you anyways. Some ways that you reconnect with yourself and realign your mindset.
So yeah, meditation.
I figured it.
I said this the other day on an Instagram live, but I heard someone called it meditating. So if you think about meditation, no, I called it meditating. I read meditation is a way of dating yourself. If you think about every time you sit on the mat or the cushion or whatever, it's basically you spending time with you, right? It's a date with yourself. So I came up with this. It just came off the top of my head. I'm probably someone else has said it, but I said, oh, it's like meditating, right? Like you're like it's not just meditating.
Love that.
So that helps keep me connected and with my truer self, right? And then of course doing my practices and journaling and all of those things really, really help. But I think getting quiet, I mean, that's the one thing that I encourage clients to do, anyone to do, is really get quiet and listen to not the loud one, but this one.
Yes. It's hard to access that part sometimes, and I think if there's anyone listening right now, if this is something that you want to do, like how could someone start, from your perspective, of course, like how could someone start meditating in general?
Right. I mean, there's so many different styles and ways. I mean, and people go, oh, I can't sit there. I just can't do it. And my mind's too busy. But for me, focusing on something for me, it's a mantra. So single-minded focus, where you're just focused on one thing, whether it's and some people use a candle, some people will look at a flower. There's different ways of doing it.
Yeah.
And starting small. So if you say, I'm going to do this for 30 minutes today, like maybe start 10 minutes, maybe start 5 minutes. Just start small and then gradually make it longer. Increase it, yeah.
And during the thicker part of the pandemic, when we were over here, we were in lockdown, like we weren't allowed to leave. And I wasn't working at the time because I was on temporary furlough. And I would just lay on my couch and actually meditate for 2 hours. I don't know, and I would just put something, I like listening to guided meditations because I find them entertaining, and I really enjoy meeting my higher self. She's really great. So I'm how, can I be with you all the time? But so I love that. I absolutely love those types of meditations. But I think that I was just in this point of having been just so go all the time that finally when I got this break to just stop, I was like, oh my God, it kind of felt it felt like a ton of bricks. And I was like, this feels like the right thing to do. Let's reconnect with myself. This is the time. You know what I mean? Will I ever have this time to lay here for 2 hours and have no other responsibilities? No. But it's really cool how that happens, because I feel like the more you meditate, the more you learn, the more you do that type of work, the easier it is to sort of go right back to that place as soon as you put on a meditation. You can just go right back in. So while, like you're saying, start out 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and then go higher and higher, it really does become easier over time. It really does. So,
yeah, and then also being forgiving with yourself and knowing that some days are going to be better than others. Sometimes I sit on my mat and I've got so much ahead of me that day that I'm just it's so hard to turn it on. And other days I sit there and I just go, oh, I could sit here for another 30 minutes.
Yes. Yes. And you're like, do we have to get up and leave?
Do we have to get on with the day?
Oh my goodness, I love it. Okay, Victoria, this is my second last question for you. And this question is one that I ask all of my guests when they come on the show. And it's, how can someone create a little more happiness in their life every day, starting today?
I mean, there's so many ways, right?
I know.
But something that I haven't mentioned and is part of also my morning practice is just connecting with nature.
Ooh.
Really, so I'll go out in the morning and I take my dog out, but I'll stand with bare feet on the earth and just look at a tree, marvel at it, just really connect with nature.
Oh, I love that.
because that is just, it's everything. So I heard something just in the past week that we tend to think of ourselves as being on this earth, like we're just on this earth, but we're actually not. We're a part of it, and we're in this earth. And if you're on the ground and you really feel, you can feel that connection if you get quiet enough.
You get quiet enough. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Having that connection. That's why these trees are just phenomenal.
They're stunning.
They are.
They look really tall.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're like amazing. I mean, I don't have one of these in my backyard, but I have plenty of other great trees.
I love those trees.
Flowers and the things that we're growing out there. It's just anything.
It's so true. It's so true. When I used to have a dog, we had to put him down last year, but he would always go and sit in the backyard, and he would go by the trees, and he would sit in the dirt, and he would just lay there, and his nice bright white fur would just get covered with all of the, oh my gosh. And I'd be like, what are you doing over there? And he's like basking in the sun. And I'm like, I think that if that moment has taught me anything, it's to be more present in your life. And I still remember it. I was almost like, is this a lesson that's meant for me, that I'm supposed to just, be taking a pause? I don't know. I feel like you get signs, like you get signs sent to you in all different ways.
Oh yeah. Today I was on with a client, and I had my screen facing the window, and literally a hummingbird came and flew right at the window, and it was hovering right before.
Oh my gosh.
A few seconds. And he was talking about having fun at that moment, and hummingbirds represent joy. And
I didn't know that.
You will not believe this, but this hummingbird just came. You need more joy in your life. I was like, wow, that's definitely a sign.
The universe is like, we're listening. Please listen.
He goes, was that for me or for you? I'm like, no, it's for you. What do you mean? I'm working on fun. Come on.
I love that. Oh my goodness. Victoria, where can our listeners find you? Because I know they're going to want to learn more.
So I am at thehandhelgroup.com. And if you want to email me, I'm at victoria@handhelgroup.com.
Amazing. I'll put the links in the show notes for this episode. But honestly, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today. This was so lovely. And I can't remember if I was saying this to just you before we started recording, or if I said this on the actual recording, but I took a break from recording over the summertime. Just needed a little bit of, break and all that and what have you. And so this is, the first conversation that I've had since, having that break. And I feel like this was just the most beautiful reminder of why I love this so much. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me on, Simona. Appreciate it.
Welcome. Absolutely. Thank you.
And then we have an offer too. So we have an online coaching platform called Interview. And it basically takes you through our entire method, the same method that I take all my clients through. So, and what you get with it, I'll have to read this because I can't.
100%. I'm going to put it in the show notes too, so everybody can access it, but definitely go ahead and read it. It's okay.
Okay, so you get 12 audio coaching sessions, and that's with our founder, Lauren Zander, who coached me. And then you get 14 homework assignments, similar, that's exactly like what we take our clients through. 1 free private coaching session, access to Interview University, and a 6-week coaching boot camp with a Handel coach. 2 free live group coaching calls a month, led by a coach. You get a promise tracker and analytics so you make promises, and it keeps track and tells you how you're doing. And then what I've noticed, especially in since the pandemic started, is the community. People are on these calls, on these group calls. People are starting to connect with each other. So it's a great community to be a part of. You get prizes for keeping your promises and doing the work, and you own it for life. So, which is great. And right now we're offering half off. So that's $325, and with Happiness Happens.
is the code.
That's our code. It's happiness happens.
Oh my God, I love this. I kind of want to take this program. This sounds amazing. I love it. But you actually, like, if you think about it in perspective, like for lifetime access and all of that value, there's like, I've done coaching programs that have been like $7,000 who haven't delivered the value that I would have wanted from it. We learn our lessons. It's okay. But I think that if you think value versus cost, it almost sounds like a no-brainer. Just saying.
Oh yeah. I mean, actually, if you were to do it all private coaching and with all the other extras and everything else, you know, it's up there. It's at least, it's thousands.
Thousands. Oh, 100%. I was like, it would have to at least be like 7 to 10, I would think.
Yeah.
I don't know for sure, but yeah.
That's exactly spot on.
Oh, wow. Okay. Not too shabby.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay. So I'm going to put all of that in the show notes and all of the links so people can get in contact with you. And, you know, for everyone who's listening right now, if there's something that's resonating with you, take a screenshot of this episode, wherever you're listening to it, put it on social media, tag us, tag me, tag Handel Group. All the links are in the bottom in the show notes. And, you know, share with us what you loved, what you learned, what, you know, resonated the most with you. I mean, we want to know. I know that you're watching, or I know you're listening because I can see it. So I want to hear what is resonating the most with you so that we can, you know, make sure that we have these incredible conversations that bring you the most amount of value. So, So thank you again, Victoria, so much for coming on the show today.
Yeah.
You're welcome. And thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in to this week's episode on the Happiness Happens podcast. Remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it. Thanks so much for being here today. I hope these words have brought you inspiration, insight, and a bit more happiness. Please leave a comment or review if this episode resonates with you. I would be so grateful. Until next time, remember that happiness happens when you're least expecting it.